What is up, Tribe? We are back on the Wholesaling Inc. podcast, the #1 wholesaling podcast in America. This is Rafael Cortez, your Wholesaling Inc. coach and creator of the Wholesaling Business Blueprint. We are sitting down today with Alan Whitworth. Check this out. Alan started wholesaling in 2019. So from 2019 to date, you've done over $3 million in sales. I mean, that's assignment fees, revenue to you, to your business. And I mean, that's an incredible number from 2019 to now. Your background, you were a field operations manager, and then you jumped into real estate investments and wholesaling, which, I mean, I remember meeting you back then, and then having a few conversations here and there and whatnot. But you've exploded this thing, and now you're doing, of course, you're still doing traditional wholesale, if there's such a thing as traditional wholesale. Right. You're wholesaling. You're doing buy and holds. You're doing more advanced strategies like novations and things like that, man. So thank you for stopping by, man, and being on the show. Glad to have you, bro.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of background on you. And walk us through the process.
So in 2018, I asked my wife that what kind of business would she be interested in getting into, if we were to start something. I wasn't even thinking about real estate. She's like, well, real estate sounds interesting, right? Mm-hmm. In January 2019, I bought a course for like $30,000. It was ridiculous. And it really wasn't even that informative. But it started me. I figured what I was figuring was like, okay, I could buy a car for $30,000, or I could invest this money in myself, and then that thing pays off eventually. You know what I mean? Something that gives me a return. It wound up being a terrible platform, a terrible course. Everything about it was terrible. But then on top of that, just like getting around other people that were in real estate was actually the main factor. You know what I mean? Just getting around people that were actually doing deals. But I mean, you have to kind of filter through what everybody's intentions are too, because some people actually want to do deals with you and actually want to make money helping you get through the deal, buy your deal from you, this and that, and then other people want to sell a product. You know what I mean? That was their persuasion on it. And I had to start deciphering through that. What I did initially was I started with text blasting. So here's the funny thing. So I was taking $3,000 out of my bank account every single month and just gambling on text blasting every single day. So I would set up, I was using Roar, which is a very primitive platform.
Yeah. And, I remember that. I used it for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was one of the first people that started using it in the Valley. Actually.
I would get up. Well, I would skip trace my stuff the previous day or whatever, the previous few days. And then I'd get up and I'd set up my campaign at 3 a.m., right? I started work at 5 a.m. Set up my campaign, get it running by 4 a.m., get ready, and then go to work. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't start blasting until 2 o'clock when I was actually off work, because it's weird, because it's like a big kick in the mouth, dude. Like, because everybody's like going, F you, don't ever, you know what I mean? Like, it's so much negativity. I was even running like ringless voicemails and stuff like that as well. People are calling you back, telling you that they hope you die, and like all kinds of really terrible negative things. So anyway, so my wife and I were getting into arguments all the time about the fact that I was pulling $3,000 out of our bank account every single month. You know what I mean? She's like, what are you doing with it? And I had nothing to say to her. So I started all my campaigning in January 2019. I didn't close my first deal until June of 2019. So that's just like that persistence level that you have to have in order to succeed. And then through that whole time frame, that whole time I was like, can I even do this? Is this even possible? Like, are all these people full of it, you know what I mean, that are saying that they're doing this and actually getting deals and stuff like that? So it's strange, because once you get that proof of concept and you know that this is actually something that works,
100%,
then things start. Well, and like put it in perspective too. So like June of 2019, I closed my first deal, which you and I were just talking about. I made $56,000 off the first deal. But then all that,
we'll break that down right now.
Yeah. And then all that work that I was doing on top of that, I was building a pipeline. And this is what you got to figure it. You're building a pipeline. You're stacking in conversations with follow up. And then after that, I closed the next one and the next one and then the next one and the next one. I did about $100,000 my first year in 2019, and which allowed me to resign from a career that I had for 25 years as a field operations manager for an electrical company, and just walk away and go straight full time into real estate.
Yeah.
And man, it's I'm not the best by any means. You know what I mean? I think we're all, you're going to make mistakes. And I think anybody that says that they're just flawless about it, I think I was talking to Pace Morby. He said he got his first deal after 1 week in wholesale. I don't necessarily agree with that. No stab at Pace on that. But he'd already had, his wife was already in real estate all this entire time. I mean, everybody has different factors, right? I just came in point blank, just starting from scratch. I had no clue. Bro, I didn't even know how to spell real estate, I think, in January.
I mean, there's a lot happening right there. I mean, you spent around $18,000
100%.
Just threw it out 6 months basically to catch your first deal. That's a lot of faith going into a space that you feel like can make a difference, right?
Right.
And like the strategy that you began with, RVMs, which are ringless voicemail, and then SMS, which is text messaging. It's one of those things that kind of lasted for maybe 8 months before it just kind of started breaking apart and falling apart. I remember doing that as well, and I used it as a strategy for a few months. But then it just restrictions started kicking in, red flags, fines, and
lawsuits,
lawsuits. It got real crazy real quick. So you jump into this, you have this strategy, and you start blasting out, reaching out for sellers, trying to find deals out there, and it starts getting tighter. So what happened first? Like, walk me through the process. What happened first? Did the marketing get tighter? Did you switch gears on the type of marketing that you were doing, or how did it carry you through like those 6 months?
First year was all ringless voicemail. Not all ringless voicemail. It started out all text blasting, then I layered in ringless voicemail after I had some more. Actually, no, I was doing ringless voicemail and text messaging the entire time. I didn't really change. Like, I just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again, just knowing. And like, I would literally just kind of change my approach in my text messages. Yeah. How I would be talking to people. I was hitting a lot of foreclosures and stuff like that, which is a list that everybody hits. I don't think there's a single person that, I don't even touch them anymore because I have a different marketing strategy now. But when you're doing direct marketing, everybody's hitting the foreclosures. You know what I mean? Everybody. And I mean, honestly, like, so right now, as far as marketing goes, I do all PPC. So like, instead of my team like begging for a deal anymore, which is exactly what text messaging, cold calling, and ringless voicemail does, because you're basically begging for a deal.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between marketing and prospecting, right? Marketing, you're putting yourself out there. Right. You're putting your brand out there, what you can do, and people see that, and it's kind of like fishing. People, people come to you, right? When you're prospecting, you're actually going after people. You're sending a text message out. You're cold calling people out, and that can be tougher. It can be lower cost, but it's going to be a lot tougher. Why? Because we are reaching out as opposed to them reaching in.
It's not always lower cost though, too, because so in 2020 I started doing cold callers. I had like 10 cold callers, VAs. Yeah. And I still have people. That's a lot. Yeah. I still have people hitting me up, asking me if I need any VAs, and I just kind of laugh about it a little bit. But I mean, even the leads that they're bringing into you, they're not necessarily solid leads. You still have to close those leads. Right. And the difference, like when you're doing something like PPC, you could be spending the same amount of money. I mean, shoot, if I would have had $18,000 in PPC, I probably would have done a lot better. I probably would have had a lot more positive experience with every single one of these people that I talk to, because it shakes you up.
I have a question in that regard. All right, so one of the things, and I push cold calling, right? Like I advocate for cold calling, and I know there's
maybe I just wasn't good at it.
No. Hear me out. There's better. I think there's PPC it's a better strategy to get people in. It's more expensive. It's not necessarily the most cost effective thing as you're coming into the business.
Right.
But the thing about cold calling, like, it preps you. It really builds 100%. That thick skin. I mean, because you're getting rejection, you're having conversations, people are throwing objections at you. You have to come back with rebuttal, and you're actually having conversations and then building that skill set as you're going through it. One thing that I've seen people do is they come in, they have a budget of $10,000, $15,000, they drop it into PPC or something more expensive, or hire out right away. And the second that they get an actual deal, they have no idea what to do. There's some theory on scripts, right, and a theoretical approach to things, but the confidence is not there. The personality that you need to have as a closer to go close a deal is not there. The actual, walking through the process of the thing so many different times before you get something real preps you, right? So it's almost like, the training camp.
It's necessary evil for
Yeah.
sure. It like even with my team as it sits right now, we'll get into slumps, and everybody's going to get into slumps. So if you think that you're just going to jump into real estate and all of a sudden you're going to kill it, you're wrong. You're absolutely 100% wrong. Maybe you might get lucky. You know what I mean? And honestly, I don't know if that's a benefit. Like if you get your first deal after a week of trying, I don't know that that's a benefit. You know what I mean? It might be to some people, but you might get spoiled and then you get lazy and so on and so forth. But I tell my people on my team, make the most difficult calls first. Mm-hmm. When you show up, make the ones that you don't want to make first. Now we've evolved to the point where none of it even matters anymore. But I mean, when you're coming in new, you always want to prioritize the most difficult phone call. And then when we start talking about that deal, I'll even put perspective on that as well. It was a ringless voicemail lead that came in, and I'm like sitting there in my truck. I'm like,
what do I do?
Yeah, I'm like scared to death to even dial the number. I'm like, just shaking, just pushing the send button.
It's crazy. I wanna make a little side note on combining different marketing strategies, right? So RVMs, ringless voicemail, and then you have SMS. I was doing the same thing when I was doing just text messaging alone. I think I was getting I think it was about a 9% response rate. And I would send out, so for the longest time, I started sending out just 1,000. I would hit 1,000 records, right? Just to track that was my base number. And then I would set up different campaigns with more, 7,000, 8,000 or whatever, but I always had a control campaign of 1,000 just to see response rates and to have a good, good grip on the percentage.
KPIs on it,
yeah, exactly. So this is what I can expect. And when I was doing one of them, and it was SMS first. The response rate I think was about 9% or something like that. So we, out of 1,000, we'd get about 90 text messages back.
Right.
And a lot of them, it was just responses, not necessarily leads, right? It's just people, sometimes being mean to us or whatnot. And then when we would add the same thing, so we would drop an RVM, a ringless voicemail, and then shoot them a text message. Hey, I called you a little while ago, and this message would hit maybe 5 minutes after or 3 minutes after it was timed. The response rates went up to I think about 27%. So
that's awesome.
We would get 250 responses instead of the 90. Again, there was a lot of stuff to plow through, right, as far as qualifying and whatnot. But combining a couple of different avenues of marketing, it's a very, very effective way. I mean, now that's kind of out the window because of all the red flags and RVMs and fines, and it's dangerous, right, to do it if you don't do it right. But yeah, there's still different ways of coming across people. PPC is one of them. Social media is another one. But if they keep seeing your name and then you start building that relationship somehow, some way to a degree, right, with the sellers, they'll come back. They'll come back and give you calls when you're sitting in your car.
I mean, 90% of the deals come from the follow up anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So and it was always we would always track. So. And what you're talking about is the omni-channel marketing, right? So you're just hitting them from multiple areas. And then even when you're doing the text messaging, if this is what you're choosing to do, your initial text message has to go out with no content. It has to go, hey, I called you the other day. What's going on? And then you have to have a second, because that one will get through the veil. That won't be blocked by the carrier. And then the second one that comes through, hey, I was just interested in talking to you about your property at, whatever, XYZ, whatever. And that was one thing that we learned, because like your deliverability goes down if you try to put content in the first one, because it gets flagged and pulled out. And we went through all this stuff, dude. All my acquisition agents, I think I had like 4 or 5 of them at the time, were required to put out 2,000 text messages a day. That was the initial, you know what I mean? That's not even included what the conversation was. Yeah. And it was just it was strange, because like in the office it's like kind of demoralizing for everybody, because like everybody's just like, oh my gosh, dude, like. And then we'd have
people are mean.
Yeah, we'd have like people in the office would come up with these text messages that were like, see if who could outdo who with the worst one. Kind of made a game about it. And then it was funny though, because once we finally, so I always went by how much it cost me to get a contract for that channel, right?
Yeah.
And I think in text messaging, we were about like $1,400 to $2,000 per contract, actual contract. I don't care about leads. I care about contracts.
Bottom line now.
Yeah. So, and everybody has a different metric. Everybody thinks about this a different way, but all I care about is bottom line stuff. Is this actually making me money?
Yeah.
You know, whether our follow-up is fantastic or is junk, you know, whatever. With the ringless voicemail, I just hear the phone ringing all day long, and people will be like Arizona next level or whatever. How, you know what I mean? How can I help you or whatever? And then I hear them go, okay, sorry about that.
Sorry about that. We'll make a note of it in the system.
Yeah. We never took them off our list. Like nobody else was, so why would we? But it's really interesting because when you shift over to PPC, every single person that's calling you now wants to sell their house. Now you have to qualify whether that house has any value. So we look at 10,000 plus population because we already know we can sell in a 10,000 population. I know other people doing PPC that won't touch anything below 50,000. We have multiple campaigns running in PPC and just kind of cross-matching to see which ones are performing well. And we just created one right now that has like a 50% conversion rate, which is insane. Wow. And then I hear other people like Corey Geary excited about a 12% conversion rate. And I'm like, wow, and we got this one's at 50%. So I just threw a whole bunch more money at that one. So you're kind of, you have to be very, very selective because you can go broke really, really fast if you make some bad decisions. And it's interesting now. I used to have like 12 people in my office. We're running, including myself and my partner, all together, there's 7 of us now. And I think we're doing better, more effective. You learn so much, and you learn where you can trim, and you learn where you can add.
Yeah.
And honestly, right now, I want to get to the point where we're clearing like $300,000 a month, like always.
You're talking big numbers, man. You're talking $300,000 a month, and this is like, it's usually what you get from somebody who started 10 years ago, right? But you've been in it for a couple of years and moved so fast.
I think it's just a matter of being around the right people. You know what I mean? Because if I'm hanging out with nobody, if everybody that I'm hanging out with is just brand new to wholesaling, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be happy with 1 or 2 deals a year.
Yeah.
I would never be content with that. And then here's another thing too, is like, when I was starting, like everybody say like, hey, I do 15 deals a month or whatever. Yeah. Well, what does that mean in numbers? Because 15 deals a month, they could be like $1,500 deals. You know what I mean? You're clearing $20,000 a month. Yeah. So it was always, to me, and no disrespect to anybody or even like realtors and stuff like that, because realtors always talk in volume, right? Yeah. The total value of the property. Oh, I did $12 million. Well, $12 million this year? Well, what did you actually make? What was your cut out of that? Because they could cut themselves short at like 1% just to be able to get the deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're not necessarily grabbing 3% across the board, so it's all dicey all the way through. So I'm just saying, just be careful when you hear those types of numbers from people. And then on top of that, when you're dealing with people that have been in wholesale for a while, oh, I do 10 deals a month. Well, what does that mean? And I started asking that question after a while, because I was like, man, I'm maybe getting 1 deal every 2 months. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe, like type of thing, closed out or whatever. Well, but I'm like, I'm clearing like, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on the deal. And so like when I start talking like, well, what does that actually mean? Like stop talking to me about how many deals you do, because it's irrelevant. How much money are you making off those? Because getting them deep is the real key thing. And we've learned a lot of tricks. Everybody in my office now on the acquisition side is super comfortable with having those harder conversations. You know what I mean? When you first start out, it's so hard to have those conversations, because in your mind, you like, I wouldn't go for this. I wouldn't accept this. If somebody wants to drop me $20,000, I'd be like, go F yourself. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's just like second nature. Like sometimes we'll even lock up a buyer and then we'll go back to the seller and drop anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that would suggest that it's unethical to get a house under contract, say for $100,000, and then come back a month or so later and then try to drop them $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 or whatever. You know what I mean? People might say that's unethical, but if you put it in perspective on the real estate, on the like the realtor side, this happens all the time, especially like when you get to the Benzer aspect of it, when you get to the appraisal aspect of it, all that stuff. Price drops happen all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just part of the business. And like we'll try to hit both sides of it, get the number up on the buy side, and then still even ask never hurts to ask, right? It never hurts to ask the question, and now you're deeper. Now your efforts have just become more fruitful. Yeah. I think that's key, like that people have a lot of mental blocks with this. where they're afraid to ask the question, or any question, or they're even afraid to, like I was saying, when my finger was shaking, just even pushing the send button on my phone. And over time, you get, like what you're saying, you get a thicker skin, and you also get a better understanding of how to navigate these conversations.
So 100%, man. I completely agree. Your background is closing. What are the top 3 things somebody needs to focus on to become a good closer, be a good closer?
What I always do is I try. So my background from the construction industry is I learned that. So I had a bunch of foremen working for me. So if I came onto a job site and go, hey, you need to fix that, you need to fix this, you need to fix this, just get it done, I'll be back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People will be like, screw that guy. You know what I mean? I'll do what I want, because these are all roughneck dudes with their own big level careers and anything. I'm just overseeing them. What I learned really fast was, if I just walk up and I care about that person, get rapport with that person. This is before real estate. Get rapport with that person. They want to now perform for me. They want to do stuff for me. So if you take that into negotiations on the real estate side, you build rapport with people. Like, I'll even throw little statements into the conversation to see whether they're left wing or they're right wing. You know what I mean? So I know I can have this conversation or this conversation. One of them, I'm not going to have a conversation with them. The other one I might, just kind of feel them out on what their common interests are. Like, I just try to get a bond with that person initially, just flat out. And that gives you so much, because like, if you give somebody value in a conversation, like listening to them, like literally one of the main things. So like, if I call you up and I ask you a question, right? And then I pause and I don't say a word for 5 seconds, you're going to respond, because it's going to get uncomfortable regardless, right?
Yeah.
I just, like, you start with, how are you doing today? And then whatever they're going to tell you, whatever, it doesn't even matter. Why are you looking to sell? You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, I just, I need to get out of this house. Then you just follow it up with that same, like, whatever their response is, you just do a why on top of that one. Why are you looking to sell? Then you don't say anything for 5 seconds before you respond again. Obviously, you don't want to take it too much further past that. You can gauge it however you want. Well, as far as strategies, go, that is a really good strategy, especially when you're dropping an offer. When you drop a number, it's almost like a game of who can, stay quiet the longest. You know what? Our offer on this property is going to be $180,000. Right.
And then you stay quiet. And the room ggets heavy, the air gets thick, and it's just uncomfortable. Whoever speaks first kind of loses. It's really how we, how we work it on the negotiation stage. But what happens is that if you give, during a negotiation, if you give somebody an easy out, they're going to take that easy out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of just force them into answering.
Yeah.
Why are you looking to move? Well, I want to be with my kids or something like that, because I'm retiring. Oh yeah, how long ago? What are you retiring from? You know what I mean? Just any one of those things. You just pick up one thing of what they said. You basically repeat something that they said with the additional question, and just keep doing that over and over and over again until, obviously, you don't want to let it drag out to the point where the conversation falls flat. But they know that you're interested in them, which people value the most. And the thing that people love to do is they love to talk about themselves. 100,000%. Like, if you can get somebody to talk about themselves, you're building rapport massively at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Awesome, man. That's great. So tell me about this $56,000 deal that you got 6 months into it. I mean, you put your neck out there for 6 months. You spent close to $20,000 in marketing, and fighting in arguments in the middle of that, and then just because you had this vision, right? You had this idea of what you could get to.
Well, she said to start real estate, so I wasn't going to fail. You know what I mean?
Boom.
So
walk me through it. How'd you get
that? Was on a ringless. That was on a ringless voicemail. I got a voicemail message from this guy Paul. He's like, "Hey, I think it's time for me to sell." No idea what he's even talking about. No clue. Yeah, and I didn't have a Podio. I didn't have a CRM. I didn't have anything. Like, literally, all I would do is I'd put dates for follow-ups in my Outlook calendar in my phone. Yeah. Call this guy this day. Call this guy this day. That was my CRM. Anyway, I'm sitting there like, holy crap! This guy just called me. I have no idea what he's talking about. Now I got to figure this out. So I'm just like, I sat there in my truck. I pulled over my truck and I sat there for a little bit. And then I finally got myself to push send on my phone. And then he said he basically had he was the mortgage holder. No, he was going to sell another house in Peoria because he was going through a divorce. All I did was I was his friend after that. Like I just talked to him about his divorce, you know what I mean? Just kind of go back and forth. And it was like, I think about like 2 weeks later, he's like, you know what? I got this other thing that you might be able to do something with. He's like, this guy's telling me he can't pay. So I didn't realize this guy was holding notes. I didn't know that he was a mortgage lender.
Oh, so the seller was the actual lender. He was holding the notes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And I didn't know that. And this goes to this, like you never know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You could be talking to somebody about some shack in freaking
So
Maryvale
true. Yeah.
that has like 50 properties across the country. Yeah. You have no idea who you're talking to. So just be careful how you approach everybody because everybody could have multiple deals that they're not even telling you about. He said, I have this one. This guy's paying $600 a month, and he called me and he told me he can't pay for it anymore. And he's like, in the past I would foreclose, but I'm getting too old. I don't even want to mess with that. Do you want to see what you can do? Yeah. So this is a Rozier property. I actually sold it to Pace Morby, and then ultimately found out that he sold it to Chris Hyman. It was all daisy chain.
It happens.
I don't even like it, you're just curious about the process. It really doesn't matter if you make money on it. That's all that matters.
Right.
But what it was is so Paul was the note holder, and he had his guy that had the house. His name was Paul also. He his brother that everybody hates him. They're dealing heroin and meth out of the house. Nobody's even been in the house for like 10 years.
Wow.
And his brother Paul had been paying the mortgage on it the entire time. So all that was owed on this thing was like $32,000.
That is definitely a sign of distress. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, 100%, 100%. But here, and this is such a low dollar property too, and it's amazing that I was able to pull out that much money, and I even gave more money back to the seller at the same time. So what it was is I just started talking to him. I started talking to Paul, the guy that actually had the property, and then I went and I signed a contract with him. And just for what he owed, literally just for the $32,000 that he owed Paul, the note holder.
So you signed it. You signed the contract for $32,000. RVM lead. What was the ARV on that property?
$160,000.
So it was worth $160. The guy he just didn't care about the property. He wanted to
get out of it.
Yeah, get rid of the headache. He got it for $32,000.
I wound up giving him an additional $19,000.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. On top of his 32, and you walked away. How much did you dispo it for?
100. I think 110,000.
Bro.
Something like that.
Bam.
Yeah.
Dude, if that's not worth the 6 months of trust, belief, and effort, I mean, I don't know what is.
There was another aspect to it, though, too, because there was an IRS lien tied to the property for $125,000.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So what I did was create.
This is your first deal.
Yeah.
This is your first deal. So now on your first deal, you're dealing with somebody who does notes. He's somebody who's got experience in it. They do have some pain in there, and now you have liens on top of this thing.
Right. And so I mean, my whole theory was if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think on the CEO podcast, you and I were talking like, don't be afraid to ask.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just ask people, just get information. Well, we wound up doing, so they wanted to have an appraisal on the property. And I was like, there's no way an appraisal is going to happen. This guy's going to shoot people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we try to walk through the property. Anyway, what we did was we just created a construction budget for it that took all the equity out of the house.
All right.
So there was no money to be made on the sale of this property no matter what. And we turned that into the IRS and they lifted the lien.
Wow. Okay.
I did that all through the title company.
Yeah. Through the title company.
Empire West was that one.
And so you went in, you kind of estimated the rehab amounts, the costs and everything, and then created a budget after that.
Correct. Yeah, a construction budget that took all the equity out completely. There was no money to be made on the sale of the property.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow. And then whoever bought it came in, and then they just did the rehab,
100%.
whatever they need. Man, that's an advanced level type of strategy to put together.
Well, here's the thing about it. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do in real estate, like,
Yeah.
and it gets broader and broader and broader. I think like maybe like I'm a 1 or 2, like
Yeah.
on a scale of 10 in the real estate game. But like, there's always another way to go about it. Like we brainstorm all the time, like how to get a seller. Like, dude, we just paid $5,000 to. So there's this property we have in Washington, and I think we're going to make like $80,000 on it, and the wife won't come to sign because it was gifted to the man, and the dude, we even paid for his attorneys for him to get divorced. We paid $7,000 to this guy and put a lien on the property. We also have so we gave him $5,000 initially. So this is how we did this one. I'll be quick. We gave him $5,000 initially to pay for his attorney. We even found his attorney for him. He'd been trying to divorce this woman since 2014. Never could come up with the money.
What?
So we'd already had this thing under contract with him. So we're already in the game with him. He's like, well, I can't sell this property because of this divorce, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, there's another problem we got to deal with. We pay him $5,000, got his attorney, and then that attorney actually bellied up, like, and was getting disbarred. So we had to hire another attorney. But with that $5,000, we put a lien against the property. But with the $2,000 that we gave him later, we actually said, we'll give you $2,000, but we're going to do a buy option on your property, meaning it's a recorded buy option, meaning no, he cannot sell this to anybody else but us. This is all ours.
But you guys,
no matter what. And then his soon-to-be ex-wife, which has no stake in the property, has no rights to the property, refused to sign, and the title company is saying that she needs to sign. And it's like, well, she doesn't, because we have this court order from the judge saying it's not necessary, but the title company wants to protect themselves.
Yeah.
So we went back and forth, and then what wound up happening, I had my acquisition agent call her on the phone yesterday, and then I just said, I was like, just offer her $5,000 to come and sign. And then when can you come sign? So she originally said next Thursday. Like, we've been trying to get this lady to sign for months right now. You know what I mean? And I've had this property for a year.
But you're thinking outside the box. I mean, you're really coming into it from a different perspective, right? Solving the seller's problem. The seller has a big issue. I mean, maybe a personal issue, not related to the property. At the end of the day, it is, right?
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people stop. Okay, what are the issues? What's the distress with the property? And they don't go that extra level to find out, okay, is there something else that might be stopping this from happening, from creating a solution for this seller, which at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, right? We get paid for speed and convenience.
And at the same time, you want to do everything you can to protect your investment too. Because I got a lot of time, money, and energy into this thing. You know what I mean? I want my $75,000 or what, I don't even know what it's going to come out to be.
Yeah.
And and these are things like, and then like if we're really talking about, I'll let you bring up what we can do for people too as well when we get to that point. But you have to protect your investment. You can't be afraid of anything. You know what I mean? The most difficult phone call that you have to make, you need to make that phone call first. The most difficult thing each day that you have to do, you need to do the most difficult thing first, and then everything else is just down the hill. If you wait till the end of the day to make that difficult phone call, you're going to sit there and just agonize over it the whole entire day, and then finally get there and go, this wasn't a big deal. If you just knock that out first, now you got momentum through the day. It's a mind trick, you know. You got to trick yourself into performing without having the doubts, because we're all going to fight through doubts no matter what we do, you know. And it gets lighter and lighter and lighter the more you're willing to take on the more difficult things first.
I love it. There's a book called Eat the Frog that kind of, really touches on that. I mean, it really sets you up to knock some of those heavier things out of the way first, and then everything is going to be easier, right? It's just... there's always like two takes to that kind of stuff, but I agree though. Like I feel like whenever I get rid of whatever's heaviest, the rest of it just kind of, okay, I'm coasting. I'm coasting through the rest, bro. Thank you so much, man. It's insane that the 2 years. I mean, you're just talking a little bit over 2 years, and the amount of progress that you've made it's not something to be what's the word? Trying to find the phrase, but it's big. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'm thinking in Spanish, right? So it's something. It's spectacular to see you progress. Your progress, coming in that fast over a matter of a couple of years.
Consistency and showing up, man, is really what it comes down to.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you on social media or maybe ask you a question,
go on to alanwhitworth.com. You could text us at 480 360-4523. And we'll answer it all the time. It's me, Jason, and Caleb, my 2 acquisition agents that'll be answering the questions.
Boom. We'll put that number on the show notes for the audience out there. Brother, thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure having you on the show. So.
All right, thank you. Did I go over?
No, we're good. We're good. Tribe. So there you guys have it. If you have any questions and you want to find out how to build an actual business instead of remaining on that hustle and trying to figure things out every step of the way, go to the Wholesaling Inc. website at wholesalinginc.com/WBB. Set up a consult call and see if it pans out. If it pans out, we look forward to working with you on a one-to-one basis. Stay focused. You got this. Let's go.